I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, in 15 plus years of watching wrestling, last night was one of the most confusing and misunderstood shows I think that I've watched in a very long time. Was it good? Was it bad? I think the way to describe Fight for the Fallen was pretty much everything you could possibly think of in between. We saw Vicky Guerrero return, which was great. We saw a match to kick off the show that wasn't that good. We saw false endings. We saw matches that didn't make sense. We saw a very good match. I think it's safe to say that we saw pretty much everything you could think of in yesterday's show. I'm going to review Fight for the Fallen, and for those of you that don't know, Fight for the Fallen was not a pay-per-view, but it was a show labeled, and I'm going to talk about what went right and what went wrong, because honestly, there's a lot to talk about, but what there is to talk about is you hitting the like button, subscribing, and doing all of that. AEW Fight for the Fallen review, go nowhere else. Now, as we're talking about this AEW Fight for the Fallen show, I think to me, I don't have a word on if it was good, I don't have a word on if it was bad, it was just confusing. I didn't understand it. Was it a bad show? No, I don't think it was a bad show, but it was an eventful show. So if someone asked me my honest opinion on what I thought about it, I would say the show was eventful. Was it good? It had its moments. Was it great? I don't know if it was an all-around great show. This show was built not too much. This was a hyped-up Dynamite coming off of Fyter Fest. Obviously, they titled it Fight for the Fallen because of the Jon Moxley and Brian Cage match that was delayed by a week because of the COVID-19 scare with Jon Moxley's wife, Renee Young of WWE, getting tested, and Moxley being tested, but obviously them wanting to be precautious, as it could rapidly spread around their locker room. So they delayed it a week, and we had a card that was pretty good here. Some things I really didn't like, some things I loved. There were 4 matches on this show. The show kicked off with a match that should have been a lot better than it was. It was Cody Rhodes taking on Sonny Kiss for the TNT Championship. Sonny Kiss, for all of you that know him, know that he could go. He's got a lot of talent, and I don't feel like he had the chance to really showcase it in this match as much as we would have liked. We knew that Cody Rhodes was winning this match and retaining his championship, so I don't think that was in question. Let's go over the match real quick. It was the biggest match of his young career. The American Nightmare caught Kiss with a disaster kick early, but could only keep his opponent down for a count of 2, as the cameraman caught Tully Blanchard watching from the stands. Fired up from some motivational words from Coach Arn Anderson, which happened early in the match, telling Cody to get his head out of his ass. Cody applied the full Nelson in search for a submission victory. Kiss fought out and fired off a flurry of offense, including a Hurricane Rana and a cartwheel axe kick, Excalibur labeled X's and O's. A missed-splitting leg drop halted the challenger's momentum, but Kiss recovered and delivered his own version of the Crossroads for a near fall. That was nice. 450 splash by Kiss earned another 2 count. The fight spilled onto the ramp where Cody delivered an Alabama slam. The champion made a mental error, though, pinning Kiss too close to the bottom rope, which allowed the challenger to drape his foot over to force the break. One of the things is that WWE tends to do this too, and AEW does it, and I'm not a big fan of it. It is rules apply to a match on occasion. No count outs, certain things, and it doesn't always make sense. Cody broke out of the vertebraker for a near fall as frustration visibly set in. He added a superplex, but Kiss kicked out again as Jim Ross continued the narrative that the campaign was off his game, even executing sloppy pinfalls. Cody countered a roll-up into a crossface and appeared disgusted when referee Aubrey Edwards forced him to break the hold. With the top turnbuckle exposed, Kiss reversed the champion's momentum, sending him face first into it and scoring another close 2 count. Kiss was fired off some strikes, but Cody countered into a crossroads to score the successful title defense. This match was underwhelming. I feel like there was potential for a lot more. The Bleacher Report's giving it a B. I disagree strongly. Was it an awful match? No, but I felt like it was underwhelming, and it could have had a lot more to offer, and it didn't offer me that. So that's kind of why I'm having that opinion about that match. The next match was really good. It was quick. I'm so used to, and a lot of people are so used to flips and high spots in AEW Tag Team Wrestling. AEW has mastered Tag Team Wrestling up until this point. Coming up a few short months of a year of AEW on television. FTR versus the Lucha Bros was very good, and it is going to continue to build FTR versus the Young Bucks, which I would assume would be at the next big pay-per-view. 2 of the best teams in professional wrestling battled. Rey Fenix and Pentagon were accompanied by Butcher and the Blade. The Lucha Bros cut a frantic pace early, looking to use their speed advantage to catch FTR off guard. Hardwood and Wheeler down Phoenix, though, and utilized quick tags to seize control of the match as Blanchard again watched from the stands. During the break, Pentagon and Phoenix wrestled control of the match. Hardwood turned tide coming out of the commercial, flattening Pentagon with a clothesline and sending Phoenix face first into the turnbuckle. The Lucha Bros answered with a flurry of double-team moves on Wheeler, forcing him onto the defensive. Hardwood re-entered the match just in time for both teams to catch the other mid-flight with knees to the midsection. Wheeler caught Pentagon with an uncharacteristic top suicida into a DDT, and Phoenix answered with some aerial offense of his own. The breakdown of action allowed Hardwood to yank at Phoenix's mask and score cradle to the hard-fought and resourceful victory. I have never been a fan of roll-up pins in matches that are big, but sometimes they are necessary, and that's where we're going to get to the main event, actually, when we get to that. This was a good match. I felt like my head was kind of not paying attention to this match completely for whatever reason. After the match, FTR trash talk with Butcher and the Blade, who turned around into a super kick party, courtesy of the Young Bucks. Omega and the Bucks hit the ring, offered beers to the victors, only for Hardwood and Wheeler to pour them over the Cleaner's head. The way that they can go here, FTR would win this match, obviously, like I stated. The way for them to go here, they have a couple of options. FTR versus the Young Bucks, but then again, there's Hangman Page and Kenny Omega as well. I think the best thing here, we're not going to have it, but usually AEW has their big show in the end of the summer. I would love to see Omega and Page versus FTR versus the Young Bucks in a triple threat tag team match. The Butcher and the Blade are cool or whatever. I don't really get behind them. But what they could, it just feels like the style of wrestling that FTR, the Young Bucks, and Omega and Page offer are not something the Butcher and Blade are really suitable to. So I almost feel like they don't have the proper initiation with it. The match was okay, and it continues to build towards that. Not a classic match as you expected. The finish was clever. The post-match events were victorious, and obviously the collision course with both the Bucks and AEW, Omega and Page. Chris Jericho has something to say. Anytime Chris Jericho has cut a promo on AEW, it has been gold. He has literally carried this brand into a level that it was not when it started. Some of Chris Jericho's best work of his career has come on AEW, and that's honest to God. He and the Inner Circle made their way to the ring, and the champion wasted no time bragging about his victory over Orange Cassidy. In the television and ratings demographic, despite advertisers, fans, and management wanting a rematch, Jericho denied it and declared Cassidy's career dead. Freshly squeezed interrupted, entering through the stands and staring the heels down. Jericho continued to talk about Cassidy, delivered a thumbs down. Orange juice spilled from the rafters, dousing the Inner Circle and leaving Jericho irate over a ruined $7,000 jacket. Bleacher Report states that this segment itself was not that great. I mean, it wasn't the greatest I've ever seen, but clearly it's building towards Jericho and Cassidy in a rematch, which I am all for because I love their first match. It also states Jericho talking TV ratings. He felt super defensive. It felt like the company having a hard time coming to odds with the fact that it lost 3 straight weekly ratings, focusing on turning the tide. But actually, second, going through all the trouble to rig the orange juice, this provided distraction to do the whole thumbs down shenanigan. There's too much effort that goes into this. That is off-brand for sure. The silver lining Cassidy-Jericho rematch seems like a sure thing. Given how extraordinary their battle was a week ago, that is a very good thing. When that happens, we don't know. AEW's show for next week is built better than Fight for the Fallen. I feel like AEW is going rapid fire right now because they care about the ratings. NXT does too. I didn't watch NXT from last night. I thought that as far as the Great American Bash goes, I thought night 1 for NXT Great American Bash was not that great outside of Io Shirai and Sasha Banks, but night 2 was fantastic. And NXT for the last couple of weeks has apparently won the ratings, and that eagers AEW, and it's pushing AEW to that standpoint of great wrestling. I think personally, AEW has been much better than NXT. Maybe not in recent weeks, but just in general. It's more of a full show, where NXT is kind of just, it's hard to explain. It doesn't have the atmosphere that Raw and SmackDown do. Now, Raw and SmackDown are by no means good shows, but it doesn't have the atmosphere that typically comes out of those type of shows. Jurassic Express versus the Elite, this match was absolutely fantastic. This was my favorite match of the night, and honestly, honest to God, one of my favorite matches of the show, or of the year. The Elite are so special. Kenny Omega's on a level where everybody else is just below him. The Young Bucks, same thing. Jurassic Express, I was never really a fan of at first, but I've gotten behind them a lot. This match was amazing. 2 of the most popular trios in the industry battled. Stunt was frustrated Omega early as Chris Jericho on commentary mentioned the longtime rival taking his smaller opponent lightly by wearing a t-shirt. Frustrated, Omega tore off the shirt, but Jurassic Express remained in control as Hangman Page watched on a monitor elsewhere. The Elite turned the tide, and Omega wiping the opposition out with a plancha. The more experienced team worked over Jungle Boy during the commercial. A perfectly timed tag to Luchasaurus sparked a comeback for the underdogs. The massive masked man showed off his incomparable athleticism and choke slam Nick. A standing moonsault followed by Omega broke up the pin. Luchasaurus rocked Omega with a headbutt, but the cleaner answered with consecutive V-triggers. He dropped the larger competitor with a Snapdragon suplex, then did the same to Stunt and Jungle Boy. The trio recovered and delivered the extinct event to Omega. The Bucks broke up the pin. There were a lot of breakups in this match. Jungle Boy delivered a huge Hurricane Rana from the top rope, and Stunt followed with a 450 splash for 2. In a great spot, Stunt delivered a Destroyer pile driver off the shoulders of Luchasaurus onto Matt Jackson for a near fall. This was great. This was one of those OMG moments. Omega delivered a V-trigger to Luchasaurus and Stunt, and then put the smallest wrestler in AEW away with the one-winged angel. After the match, Omega was pissed. He added some extra right hands to Stunt. Much to the dismay of the Bucks, he lowered himself into a corner and could be seen talking to himself. This was fantastic. I felt, when you look at it from a grand standpoint, if you were to take the first half of Fight for the Fallen and the second half was much better. It wasn't perfect, but it was much better. Omega has spent the better part of last year being walked over. First it was Jericho, and then Moxley, next it was Pac, and now his own tag team partner. Now it's FTR. After having beer poured on him, Stunt was the wrong wrestler at the wrong time. Omega, don't be surprised if there are more who incur the wrath of Omega going forward, as the partnership with Paige appears to be reaching a crescendo. The tag team is great. Both of them are great. Does it need to continue? I don't know. I think there are enough tag teams that are much suitable for the championship. And in all honesty, I think that Omega, it's time for him to have some gold around his waist. The next match I missed most of because it was the second to last match, the Nightmare Sisters. For those of you that don't know, Brandy Rhodes actually wrestles as well. Will be in tag team action. Dustin Rhodes came down. The initially hesitant partners looked to continue their winning ways as they battled the team of MJ Jenkins and Kenzie Page. Allie scored the pin on Jenkins with a reverse DDT elbow combination. Moments after the match, this was a nice part. Dasha introduced former AEW Women's Champion Nyla Rose. After being questioned on who her new manager is, she introduced Vicky Guerrero, who issued a warning to the rest of the division. Who cares about the match? Let's talk about Vicky Guerrero. From what I know, that she's been traveling or has been around AEW for a while. I don't know if anybody actually predicted this, but I can tell you this right now. It's great to see Vicky Guerrero back as a manager, and I can't wait to see what happens there. The match I didn't care for, Nyla Rose, I'm really not a fan of. Let's talk about the main event. This was, interesting. Brian Cage is better than people think. We're talking about the AEW Championship between Jon Moxley and Brian Cage. He's better than people think. I don't know if I'm very interested in the feud to begin with. The match ended without Moxley losing the title and without Cage eating the pinfall. He won the Casino Ladder match to earn a shot. The action was non-stop from the start, though. Moxley was looking to establish his fearlessness while Cage sought to establish physical dominance over the champion. Moxley repeatedly sought an armbar. Cage pounded his way out. The Machine countered. Nice German suplexes into the barricade. Back from commercial, Cage applied a torture rack. I don't know why the notes are so long here. The champion applied a Kimura bar and bid to force a submission. Cage tried to fight his way out of a hold. Moxley shifted his weight and maintained control. He floated over and applied the hold onto the arm. Taz, frazzled by what he watched play out before him, threw in the towel to preserve his client's health. So what it did was it made sure that Brian Cage didn't eat the pinfall, didn't make him look weak, and Jon Moxley retains the championship. And for no reason whatsoever, Cage attacks Moxley with the FTW championship at the end, only for the lights to go out, and out comes Darby Allin, who blasted the Machine. A Darby Allin and Brian Cage feud will not be believable any day of the week. Darby Allin's great. I love his character and gimmick, but it's just not believable. This show was literally all over the place. I didn't understand it. It wasn't bad. It was, Bleach Report says it was a great night of pro wrestling, enhanced by the superb tag team action and the character teases for Omega and Cody. What happens next, my guess is as good as yours. Thank you, everybody, as always, for watching. Stay tuned.